Hello, Robert. Welcome
Hey,
back.
hey, thanks.
How you doing?
No, good, good. In very dark December Stockholm, although the Christmas lights are out. So that's
That
good.
will cheer it up.
Yeah, that's the case
But
everywhere.
you've just come back from Brussels, and we are going to talk about the EU's public procurement plans. This is the third time we're going to talk about it. Last time we had Hugh MacDonald from, remind me ever of the name?
Ecology.
Ecologic Institute, I think it was. Yeah, he came
Yeah.
on the show to discuss the report that they released, and now there was a workshop that you attended, Robert. And yeah, keen to dig in. Where should we start?
Let's maybe kind of wind back to where is the history of the EU Buyers Club, because I understand that's what the workshop was about, right? The Buyers Club itself. So I actually happened to be in Brussels also last week, and I understand Brussels was full of CDR buyers who were going around in the evenings. So
All 5 of them.
all 5 of them. And so back in May, we did a first episode on the purchasing program. And that's where we first saw the idea that the Buyers Club could be there. And then when we had our second podcast episode on this, when Hugh came to talk about the very detailed paper they prepared on this, we had quite a bit more information on the Buyers Club already. But it was all parts of the work that was done for permanent removals. So now it really caught me by surprise that there is now the bioeconomy strategy in which this Buyers Club was actually announced. And it is not limited only to permanent removals. It's for all types of CRCF credits, basically. I'm not sure if also emission reductions or just removals. It's not fully clear to me. But so how do you see this? How this whole idea has evolved now?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few options, but there was a communication, a press release, and as you said in the bioeconomy strategy, they announced that yes, EU is doing a Buyers Club, so weighing a few options. It was very clear, like the workshop wasn't per se about the Buyers Club. It was like learning from buyers and like how can you incentivize demand. But yes, with that as the backdrop. And it's very clear to me that the EU really wants to use its soft power to incentivize more voluntary purchases. And I mean, it makes sense. There's not that much budgets that they can pull from easily and quickly to buy CDR, although like the Buyers Club have to have EU money, even though they don't necessarily know exactly what pot they're going to take it from yet. But otherwise it wouldn't really work if there was no public money. But yeah, it would be in the interest both in the short run, but also in the long run. Like it would be hard to reach net zero in the EU, and you definitely want to have voluntary demand to help out with that. But currently, there is not enough incentive. So what can the EU do to use its soft power? I think that was what the workshop was about, really.
What does that mean in practice? I mean, there's so many ways that they could use the soft power. So what does it mean in practice?
And the Buyers Club in itself is an example of that, right? That they arrange for something that they hope people will join. But other things could be, like I introduced in the meeting, I don't know if it's a good idea, but I was like, trying to come up with stuff. Could you have a label, like EU label, like you compensate, you reach operational net zero for your scope 1 and 2 and maybe business travel. And the EU gives you like a operational net zero approved by the EU. Like something like that. I think we need to do like 180 from the Protecting Consumers Directive and Green Claims Directive, and also the previous CSRD that really treated removals as a little bit suspicious that you do for some magical residual emissions. And I think if you want private buyers, you're going to have to praise them and give them like full cover in various ways. So I don't know how much it helps, but it's stuff like that, I think.
Okay, so the workshop took place, and I understand it was under Chatham House rule, so we will not be getting specific on who said what, unless you obviously can share, Robert, what you said. So you're free to do so, but just let's be mindful of that. But what I would like to explore is, so the whole idea, the way it was put forward, was that we are looking at the near term, 2025 to 2030.
Yeah.
And this is the trickiest time, because I mean that's probably the reason why the Commission now within the next 6 months is going to set up several workshops to further iron out the details of this Buyers Club. But this is also the time where we understand the least of the use cases of the credits, because from 2031 onwards, we know that, for example, certain credits will have a role in the EU ETS. Well, obviously, that's only a fraction of the CRCF credits, but still, you know, there's a clear use case. But before that, it's a bit of a challenge. And then if we look back to the workshop we had in May when this Buyers Club came up, then one of the elements that was raised was that there was a bit of a Buyers Club fatigue, because there are already some clubs in existence. They really, I mean, haven't grown in terms of members that much over the last years. They just are, you know, moving on, doing their thing, but it's not something that is exponentially growing. It's tricky to get buyers to sign up. Like, do you think this soft power will work? And also, it needs to start working really, really soon to have impacts in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think the thing that could make a Buyers Club work is that if you join it, you get subsidized credits. The EU pays part of it. That would be the pulling factor.
Mm-hmm.
So you can buy it more cheaply, thanks to. But if you're not in the club, you don't get the subsidy. That I think may work, and it could perhaps be started quickly as well, as long as they find some money somewhere in some existing program where the money is not spent, that can be repurposed.
So
well, we see on the existing program. What has been mentioned on social already by policymakers also is the First Movers Coalition as a potential, not necessarily in this context, but they would have maybe budget. Infrastructure.
Yeah, well, they don't buy together by carbon removal. It's just a commitment I mean, we work with Salesforce and Milkywire, and they had their $100 million for carbon removal under the First Movers Coalition. And then they're like procuring with Frontier, with Milkywire, like different ways. So it's not like a centralized facility. I meant that the EU would need to find money from an existing EU initiative that has money left, because they can't go and ask for a new pot quickly, as far as I understand.
Have there been news there? Because when I was in Brussels a few weeks ago, there was kind of a number that was floated for this procurement. It was around €1 billion split three ways, like a third corporate, a third from EU institutions themselves, and a third from multilateral banks. And I mean, this was just pie in the sky, kind of how this could look. But has there been any more ideas for where this money could come from? Because again, what I'm worried about is what Eva said. They wanted to have an impact 2025 to 2030. And if they don't even know the sources yet, it sounds like it will take a long time to get this up and running.
I don't think it's necessarily impossible to like get 100 million from some existing program that is in the EU that hasn't been spent, and you can repurpose it. There's many, funding programs that are maybe not going exactly as they were planning. I don't know which one. Like something that was mentioned a lot in the workshop also by the EU is the Innovation Fund, but I don't think the purchasing money would come from there. But they described how they see that you would use these things maybe together, and like Innovation Fund could be one source of funding for these CDR startups, and the Buyers Club another one, and hopefully working in tandem and so on. I mean, the Innovation Fund would probably give out fewer grants than a Buyers Club would buy from, that I expect, but still, for some, it may be that kind of circle.
Did you get a feeling for kind of potential timelines? Or did they say anything?
It is in the next couple of years, yes. So I think they would like to get it started in next year, basically. That's my impression. I don't think they gave a timeline, no. But my impression is it will be next year. At least getting things started.
what really stands out to me is how this, I mean, the way that you also described it, the main pull factor would be subsidized credits, right? By default, by design, this would mean co-financing, which goes against, to make a quick detour, current SBTI suggestions and so on, right? So
Forget about that. That's gonna change anyway. I'm very sure.
Okay, because that is clearly the direction that
I mean, you have the co-claiming anyway, as well.
Yeah.
I think that would be fine, and I don't think you wouldn't use this against any SBTI targets anyway, because you really can't in the short term. So
yeah, that's
forget
true.
about
Before
SBTI for now.
Matter.
I think.
Yeah.
But then there's a challenge that, we all hope that the Green Claims Directive will provide some clarity on the use of CRCF credits. And
no,
now
the green claim is dead. They said
exactly.
It's not going to resurrect.
Yeah, that's the challenge, because it was kind of sold to us that it's just on ice for now. But I mean, now it's clear it's not going to come back. So we are not going to have that clarity. Is that something that is that remains a concern, or do you think that the buyers will just kind of it's gone?
Claims was talked about a lot on the workshop, so it is something that's needed. I don't know what you can come up with. Can you introduce a label? Can you do some other? If there's no regulation, that you're not going to be punished for making claims, so that's good, at least. And then you need just reputational cover, and then the EU maybe can make statements that it's totally fine if you want to make a net zero claim with CRCF credits. I mean, they should. Maybe that's enough. I don't know. If there's no regulation, you can't be it's not going to be forbidden, at least. And it's not. I think the new CSRD draft that came out in November, like the ESRS, like how the simplified, it's actually better for CDR. I just had a browse through it in the meeting, and Christian mentioned that it was under review now. And before, it was the talk about CDR could only be for residual emissions. Even 10% was mentioned in a footnote. That's gone now. So that would be, at least, it looks positive.
It's just kind of digging deeper on this, because as we are not going to have something on SBTI in this time frame to be relevant. So do you think the EU could, now with more helpful CSRD and potentially something else, to kind of create this little nudge to create interest, basically try to fill the gap that we in a way have right now for making claims with CDR credits?
Yeah, I mean, I think they want to, and they're open to ideas. So if you have an idea on how EU could use soft power to incentivize demand, I think they're all ears. So they're going to listen to anyone with a good idea there, or any idea. So I don't have many. Label was what I couldn't come up with. You have, of course, leaderboards and general praise and so on, but I don't know how much that helps. I mean, currently Go ahead.
No, because obviously I imagine when you're talking about the big buyers, I imagine there were quite a few Americans in the room. What about European buyers? Did they show up to this workshop?
There was a couple, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But is it quite agnostic in terms of how they're thinking about structuring this? In terms, the buyers can be from wherever. There's no specific emphasis on Europe.
Yeah, they've said it publicly that they're welcoming buyers from anywhere. I mean, that's also in the news already, and
the EU part would be the credits.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is actually a good segue. I recall you being quite skeptical about if this is the best use of money, because the money should probably be spent on higher ambition credits, not necessarily to subsidize Europe's NDC, right? How do you feel nowadays about this? How does this feed into the discussion?
Yeah, I mean, there's different. I think I have maybe a better understanding of how things work and what the objectives are here. And I understand why you would like to, if you're spending public money, why you want that to stay in Europe and support the EU industry. That's why the EU does this as well. They're not altruistic CDR funders, like philanthropists that just look at how can we support the CDR ecosystem globally like in the best way possible. That's often my lens, right? And yes, if you have money to spend and you want to, then yes, I think in spending it on international projects where also co-benefits are higher, often costs are lower, makes sense and not limiting to EU. But I understand why they would like to keep it in the EU, and I don't think that there's going to be any change on that side.
I was thinking the other side, actually. I was thinking an American buyer, for example, right? You're an American buyer, you have a budget, and then you can decide where to spend it. Or there might be a big draw to spend it here. As you said, it might be cheaper, right? You could get more bang for your buck. But if I recall your argument correctly, it was more basically if the buyer's ambition would be higher if it spent it elsewhere.
No, that's for sure. But I think there hardly are any new buyers. Like, it is really about creating new buyers. So it's more like conditional on you wanting to buy CDR. Should you buy it in Europe or should you buy it in Kenya? Then, like, for all things equal, if you're contributing to increased ambition in Kenya, you could have higher ambition. But I think I also see how maybe NDCs and so on won't be reached anyway now. Like, and it's going to be hard to reach them. And then, like, you are not necessarily actually lowering ambition. You're maybe helping to reach an NDC that otherwise wouldn't be or won't be anyway. So maybe I have a little bit more realistic view on it and less kind of theoretical, altruistic.
Yeah, that's the reality. The fact that the country has outlined that they have this climate goal doesn't mean that they have all the policies in place to reach it and they're fully on track. Hopefully, most countries will meet their NDCs, but the fact is that it's just not a given.
But I think that countries like Kenya could use it as an argument still, and like and any credits here won't be used for NDC. You get an automatic corresponding adjustment. That could be a way. Like, they may not have subsidies for their credits, so they may need these type of arguments to also be competitive.
So was there any reflection at the workshop on the fact that now it's not only about durable removal credits, but it's all CRCF credits, including all the carbon farming credits, or that really wasn't part of the conversation?
No, this was just a durable CDR workshop, really.
That's really interesting, because if you look at the bioeconomy strategy, that is all mostly about carbon farming, and that's basically the main language around this buyers club, whereas the conversation, the people in the room, it seems to be focused on durable removals. Interesting how that pans out. So,
but can I ask one more question here?
Yeah.
Also, Robert, you're very close to buyers. From my perspective, it would make sense to allow buyers to access the whole portfolio in such a buyers club. Because yes, they want durable removals, but most of these buyers also want nature-based solutions and temporary removals, right, as part of the package. So if you're thinking about the design of a buyers club like this, and we see the ones in practice, a lot of them are just durable removals, right? Do you think that it would be more, desirable or attractive for buyers if it was all removals, or if it was focused, kind of, you had one for durable and one for nature-based, or just one for durable, or whatever it ends up being?
Well, I mean, as long as you can choose what you buy, I guess it would be, all else equal, better for if someone has more to choose from.
That's what I would imagine too.
Yeah.
So I'd like to dig a bit deeper on, like, what level of motivation would be enough motivation in terms of buyers coming along, and about the seed money that the Commission would need to put into this, because so the way this buyers club was outlined in the documents so far was that the Commission would cover operating expenses of it, and it would be run ideally by a public bank, either European or national, and Commission would also provide seed funding. I mean, I heard now Sebastian floated this 30%. Is 30% attractive, or would 20 be enough? Like, what do you think? Like, what kind of level of access to subsidized credits would be pushing enough buyers, like, over the line to actually access this buyers club?
It's a good question. I mean, it's not necessarily price that's holding most people back from buying right now. It's, and I brought this up in the meeting as well, like it's why. It's the why, it's not the cost. So for the cost to matter, I think you has to be, pretty significant, like if that's the main thing, right? And then maybe it needs to be half or something like that for it to really matter. If you can't really create a very convincing why. I mean, the only ones telling companies to buy carbon removal right now is carbon removal companies. There's no other official entity really saying that you should do this. There's maybe like, yeah, it could be nice, but like SBTI and so on, but it's not really need that. It can the EU Commission and member states say something here, go out with like very strong recommendations, encourage this. This is part of being a responsible business and so on. And that's mainly going to be not the big emitters, right? Like, so it's going to be high profit companies with low emissions, like all the buyers almost are. Yeah, that may help.
I'm thinking Switzerland is a good example of a country that actually has come out quite strong at trying to incentivize corporates, trying to give them interim milestone targets and all that stuff, right? Do you have a sense if that's worked? Because that would be an example of what you're saying.
I don't know. I wrote about it like when it came out, but since then I haven't heard that much more. So I don't know if it's in full force, and it would technically even be like you have to, but there would be no penalties if you don't, but you couldn't access certain grants and so on from the government unless you do have like a net zero target and start working towards it. So it is interesting. It is an inspiring example.
So what we're getting here into is really that there's this huge potential opportunity, but it's really difficult to figure out how to seize this opportunity.
Yeah.
And basically, so the next 6 months, where Commission will be running the workshops to really iron out the deal of this buyers club. I mean, this will be instrumental. I mean, I hope we'll have many people listening in on this episode who have ideas how this thing could actually provide the necessary motivation. And yeah, maybe EU could. The challenge is that it cannot really be part of the regular EU policy because that takes too long to put in place. We don't have that time. I don't think so, unless there's something very quick and dirty that could be done.
Yeah.
So yeah, a huge opportunity, but very difficult to come up with great ideas.
My best shot in general right now is this concept of operational net zero in the near term. So I think what has been unconvincing for most companies is that you need to start buying CDR now, because otherwise it won't be available for your long-term 2040, 2050 net zero target. I mean, it's a good argument, but it's just too far away. Like, people don't care enough. It's not convincing enough. It convinced a few maybe, but it's not good enough. So reach net zero now for at least your scope 1, 2, and maybe business travel, and make a claim that you reached operational net zero. That's maybe, something. Schneider Electric has that. They're doing it for their 2030 target. There's a few others as well. That could motivate more people. We need a little bit more cover that this is accepted, and it's actually a good thing to do. And you won't be attacked by, at least not others than the most crazy NGOs, which will always attack you no matter what you do anyway. So that doesn't really matter. Yeah.
You mentioned briefly member states, but this is something that I also want to touch on, because, for example, in Germany, there will be public procurement next year, and we're having very similar discussions with the German government, right, about how to leverage private buyers with a public procurement program, what that should look like, what design, and so on. Were member states present? Is there kind of a connecting the dots between these different initiatives?
Only it's Swedish Energy Agency. It's so not official, no.
Okay, that's probably another thing that, because I mean, you said probably next year, German public procurement next year for sure. I hope that we could, that they could work together on this, because there's money on the table and two entities trying to do the same thing.
Yeah. But one has to realize that you need to really legitimize the use right now, because I mean it has been treated with this suspicion and not fully seen as a mitigation solution. Like people thinking that even offsetting your flights may somehow be like greenwashing. Like you really need to stamp that out and be really clear that CDR is mitigation. It's fully like fine to use it to compensate for emissions right now. If you don't do that, I don't think it's gonna work.
Who can do that? I'm totally with you, right? But then my head goes to, what would that look like in practice? Who would have to say that? And I just cannot, I don't understand where that would come from.
Eva knows better if there is someone that could say it from a...
So I think for a while, because the whole SBTi work was a bit in vacuum, it wasn't clear what will come out of it. So I think the last couple of years, I've heard from multiple people that we need something else. SBTi will not deliver what is needed to scale CDR. I mean, now having seen the last version of the draft standards, I mean, we can say that, if we talk about the next 5 years, it doesn't do anything. So these conversations have been happening. Should there be another entity? But it has been kind of, it kind of came up and people discussed it and nothing really happened. And there was still hope that, maybe SBTi will do it. Well, now we know that SBTi's role will be for later than this time frame. So ideally, but it's really difficult whether you want to create a policy framework that helps, that takes time, or if you want to create another organization or some kind of a standard setting body that can set the rules and have the authority. None of this can happen overnight. And also, why would you do something for just a few years and later on others will continue? It's really, really complex situation we find ourselves in.
What could be done from can van der Leyen say it? I don't know. Like how do you even how can the EU speak? Like can you give that kind of cover from EU and member state? Like how would that work? Can you see that, Eva?
The problem is that the corporates would want something clear, and the policymaker, just making a speech and saying that this is a good thing is not going to cut it.
Yeah.
It's just going to be one speech.
Yeah.
and then it's going to be forgotten. Like there has to be a hook that comes from it that everyone can rely on, that provides this certainty.
Yeah. Bring in the label. Yeah. That will be quick. You'll get a stamp. You don't need anything
But somebody has to stand behind that label, right?
Yeah, who stands behind the existing EU energy efficiency labels, etc.
But
we'll make it work.
Will we figure out the label within, I don't know, 6 months to a year and then get it implemented? It's the time frame makes it really difficult.
So
I don't know how that works.
What I'm hearing from this is that obviously the why and something like a label, that would be a much bigger draw than a cost reduction, but that is extremely unlikely in the next 6 to 12 months. So really the only way to get this off the ground properly is to make the cost reduction attractive enough that even without the why, people act, right? I mean, that's what I'm hearing from this conversation.
But then would the Commission find money for that? Because when we hear, maybe 50-50 would be attractive if it's just the price. I mean, that's not something that the policymakers have in mind at this point when they talk about buyer's club. Like they're not thinking about putting 50% on the table from
and it might not go anywhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, we need some creativity here. I hope something great happens over the.
Yeah, what I think is positive is that the ETS seems to. It sounds like they will be willing to put money on the table immediately, and I understand that just integrating CDR into the ETS is not going to do anything for demand. So some kind of CFD or centralizing procurement facility like that starts to put CDR in it is something I hear a lot being discussed in the EU circle. So it feels like that would at least give demand. It's further away, but still.
Yeah, it sounds like there are solutions, but at least for the next 6 to 24 months, it'll be quite tough to get something great off the ground.
the problem is the next 5 years, basically.
Yeah.
And after that, everyone already sees where it's going, and it's gonna go, and it's gonna have a role. The problem is bridging the gap until then.
All right. Well, we're up on time. I'm sure this won't be the last time we talk about this buyers club or European procurement. Thanks, Robert, for joining us. And see you next time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye, Robert.